A big month ahead for the Boilermakers, including a game against Iowa on Saturday in Iowa City. The Boilermakers taking a bit of momentum into the contest, having beaten Illinois 44-19 over the weekend. I'm Kyle Charters, Tom Dienhart here as well for Gold and Black Radio. Tom coming up next, but first this.
Designing and building since 1968, T&W has changed the way people think about construction. T&W's three-stage approach to designing and building is unmatched throughout the construction industry. Learn more about T&W's people, passion, and projects at twdesignbuild.com.
Experience unparalleled comfort, service, and cuisine at the Whitaker Inn. This Midwestern oasis is perfect for a relaxing staycation or weekend getaway. Escape from the ordinary at the Whitaker Inn.
The Boilermakers get a much-needed win against Illinois on Saturday as we flip the calendar, Tom, over to October, where it gets a little bit more difficult for the Boilermakers. However, and this is always the case, right, after a win, it looks a little rosier here, perhaps, than it did before, because while the schedule is more difficult, there are, games here in which you expect the Boilermakers to be able to compete, especially as you feel good about the win against the Fighting Illini.
Yeah, 2-3. You got 5 games left. You got to find a way to win. What is that? Am I doing my math right? 2-3, and they got 7 games left.
Yeah,
you got to find a way to win 4 of those 7, obviously, and yeah, maybe there's a couple on there that maybe don't look quite as daunting as we thought back in August, right? And one of those games is this Saturday at Iowa, and that game at Nebraska to close this month. Both look like they may indeed be winnable given the struggles of each. And again, Kyle, Iowa's struggles, my goodness, they're challenged anyway on offense when they're fully healthy. Well, now they're not fully healthy. It sounds like the quarterback, Cade McNamara, the Michigan transfer, may be out for the year. Maybe something will be out by the time this is posted officially from the University of Iowa. But yeah, without McNamara, again, that offense is really going to struggle. 2 running backs, the top backs are out as well. Their tight end, Luke Lachey's outstanding, is out. So, yeah, they're going to be pushing the boulder uphill. And here comes Purdue, right, Kyle, coming off its best game of the year, having some mojo, feeling good about itself. So I think Iowa's given 4 at this point, but maybe Purdue can find a way to sneak one out of Kinnick Stadium where they've won 2 of the last 3 times they played.
Yeah, maybe that line changes a little bit, too, if McNamara is indeed ruled out for this weekend and perhaps beyond. Purdue has had success over there in Iowa City. Obviously, things have changed from a Boilermakers perspective, new coaching staff with Ryan Walters and company, but it's not as if that has been, a Wisconsin-esque like game for Purdue. It's been a good matchup for the Boilermakers.
Of late, it was kind of Wisconsin-esque there for a while. Ever since Hayden Fry got there in 1979, Iowa just dominated Purdue in the 80s, and I think Purdue may only beat them one time in the 90s. So, yeah, but Jeff Brom comes aboard and sort of flipped the script there. I think he had a winning record against Kirk Ferentz, and so, yeah, the playing field's maybe leveling a little bit. Let's see if Ryan Walters can continue. Again, a great opportunity, and like I said earlier, Purdue's got to be feeling good about itself on both sides of the ball. I know it was only Illinois, but still, to actually see tangible results, to see that defense be more aggressive, make some big plays, some big negative plays, 7 TFLs, 5 sacks, and offensively, Kyle, some big plays downfield. And dare I say the strength of this Purdue offense is running the football with Tracy, Mockabee, and Downing, and then a little bit of Hudson Card. Purdue's finding a way to get it done, and that 44-19 victory, they displayed a lot of what this program could be this year.
Yeah, Purdue gets the win against the Fighting Illini. I think that if it would have been a 24-21 victory, like many of us predicted, I think in our predictions, Gold and Black, a lot of them were between 1 and 4 points, somewhere right in there. But the fact that Purdue, in the second half in particular, really just dominated Illinois and put that game far in the rearview mirror, I think says something a little bit more about Purdue. It was not just a pedestrian victory. Purdue really dominated a team in Illinois that probably isn't all that good. But when you're taking on an opponent like that, you really want to put the hammer down in the second half, and Purdue was able to do that.
Yeah, they did what they were supposed to do, Kyle, against, like you said, an opponent that's really not that good, an opponent that's really struggled this year in Illinois. I think Purdue was maybe a couple-point favorite. Like you said, they really put the pedal to the metal in the third quarter. I think they outscored Illinois 21-0 in the third quarter to sort of start that thing away early, and looked very convincing in doing so for a homecoming crowd. Yeah, again, just they have to feel good about all this. And you know what, Kyle? The one thing that's always encouraging in life, no matter who you are, if things aren't working, you got to look for solutions and change, right? And we saw some significant ones on Saturday in Ross-Ade with Ryan Walters signaling in the defense from the sideline and Kevin Kane working in the press box, sort of as his eyes in the sky, working in concert with Ryan Walters, still working together. But that was how they were configured at Champaign the last 2 years when they were so good on defense over there. And then offensively, Kyle, they moved their offensive coordinator, Graham Harrell, to the press box, and they moved his eyes to the sky, Seth Dagey on the field. So, you know what? Like I said, they look for solutions, and things seem to really work swimmingly on Saturday. And I'm sure these arrangements, as far as the staff and where they're located, are going to probably continue.
Yeah, I always think the OC should be up in the box just from a perspective point of view to see how things are developing, what things look like, see if you can, see tendencies in the defense that you might be able to exploit. And so seemed like good moves from both perspectives. And as you said, you like to see a young staff be willing to make those kind of changes early on in the season. I mean, I think sometimes a tendency is to, just stick with it, right? And we'll show you that we can get it done. But a willingness to make some adjustments, I think, is a good sign for Purdue.
Yeah, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing, expecting different results. That seems to describe the Iowa offense, doesn't it? Still, I think we talked off fair. The Iowa offense is still stuck in 1985.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, the people can be stubborn. They think their way is infallible and it's going to work. Gosh darn it, it's going to work. We just keep doing it. But you got to always be willing to look at maybe alternatives if things aren't working. Be open to change and trying different things. You always have to be adaptable. That's what coaching is all about. That's what life's about. It's about changing and adapting because change is going to happen. How are we going to react to it? And as coaches, they always have to react to these changes, Kyle. It's like living a lifetime in 60 minutes, a football game. The ups and downs of life, the ups and downs of a football game, the ebbs of momentum. You're down, you're up, things are changing. What are you going to do now? Oh my gosh, things are falling apart. What am I going to do? So that's what it's all about. And like I said, it was good to see a young staff in particular be willing to look at things differently if they thought what they were doing maybe needed to be tweaked.
We've talked a lot, Tom, in the first almost half now of the season about offensive identity. It seemed like Purdue took a step forward in establishing what it wants to be on that side of the ball. Maybe part of that was Illinois, but it seemed like Purdue, is emphasizing the run. Another game in which it's very productive with its running backs. Seemed like it tried to set Deion Burks up a little bit more. Obviously, the nice play there in the red zone on the toss sweep. A play that we had actually in the limited amount of time that we watched practice, we had actually seen that play run and hadn't yet seen it in a game. So figured it was out there somewhere, but Purdue did run it then and in a good spot. And Deion Burks got to show off the speed there on that play as well. But they had bigger plays, more explosive chunk plays, as they call them, in the game as well. So it was a much more efficient offensive day for Purdue, and one in which it did get big plays as well. It seemed like a step forward for Purdue's offense.
Yeah, you're right. The big plays, getting the ball in Deion Burks' hands, good things are typically going to happen. And, we talked about the ground game. Tyrone Tracy, I think, clearly has established himself as the alpha running back. One of the bigger surprises, I think, of the season so far. Devin Mockabee. We know all about his issues fumbling the ball. He had another one on Saturday. I believe that's 6 on the year, but they kept with him, Kyle. Kept him out there, even let him run on his goal line to score a touchdown. So they need Devin Mockabee. We all know that. And so that's key. That ground game, like I said, has been a real strength. And we got to tip our hat a little bit, I think, the offensive line. Sometimes we criticize it, but I thought they did a pretty good job against an Illinois defense that has two, I think, NFL defensive tackles on it. And one other thing, too, Kyle, Purdue did a better job Saturday of limiting penalties, which had become a bugaboo, and turnovers. We talked about the Hawkeyes fumble, but that was it. I think before that, Kyle, the two previous games, they had six turnovers total. So we all know you can't turn the ball over if you want to win. So, again, getting those turnovers buttoned up, getting the penalties buttoned up, were, I think, big steps toward all that success they had Saturday, too.
Yeah. Purdue was solid defensively. I tweeted out during the game, or posted out on X during the game, that Illinois' offensive line was questionable.
You're being kind. You're being kind.
Yeah, it struggled a little bit, and Purdue really took advantage of that. I mean, I thought that Purdue's defensive front was really good. Really, the whole defense in general, I thought, played very well on Saturday. But when Purdue's able to get some pressures like that and force the quarterback into making some quicker than necessary decisions, it works out pretty well. Now, the first play of the game, you were a little like, yeah, here we go again. A quarterback running the football. But Purdue got a little bit better locked in. Yannick Karlaftis had a great game. Purdue got various different pressures. I thought that the secondary was pretty good again for Purdue. So it was a pretty good all around effort by the defense.
Yeah, I thought they were more aggressive. Maybe that was because they wanted to take advantage of that vulnerable Illinois offensive line. We saw the defense score a touchdown, Kyle.
Yeah,
Markevius Brown looked like he sprinted about 50 yards, and he finally reached Luke Altmaier. Of course, he yards the ball loose, and Joseph Anderson smothers it in the end zone. So it was good to get a defensive touchdown. I believe that was Purdue's first touchdown of the game. So sort of set the tone, right? Very aggressive defense. I mentioned the 5 sacks, 7 TFLs. You talked about Yanni. O.C. Brothers was out, the starting inside linebacker. So Yanni had to play more along with Clyde Washington. And, yeah, Yanni had a career game. I think he was number 2 on the team in tackles behind Sanusi Kane, had the sack. He had a TFL. So nice to see number 14 taste some success. And who knows, maybe this will be a spark, give him some confidence, and he can become more of a contributor throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, it was definitely nice to see. That was a spot, not just him, but the position in general, where you felt like, Purdue needed to start making a little bit more plays, and he certainly did that against Illinois on Saturday. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll push ahead here, look at the month of October, Hawkeyes in particular. We'll do that coming up next on Gold and Black Radio. On the far end of Main Street in downtown Lafayette, you'll find East End Grill, industrial and classic. The restaurant is built like a steakhouse, but handles like a bistro. East End Grill's menu includes creative starters, simple chopped salads, burgers, fresh fish, and steaks, and the signature shrimp and grits. The staff prepares every item from scratch and emphasizes simple meals that incorporate fresh, local, and seasonal ingredients. A warm and inviting dining room features a cozy bar that includes a great selection of craft beer, inspired cocktails, and a robust and expanding wine list. Whatever your entertainment needs are, a cocktail at the bar, dinner with family, or a special event in the private dining room, the energized and attentive staff is here for you. East End Grill in downtown Lafayette, welcome to our table. When it comes to land sales, it pays to have experts in your corner. AcrePro Midwest Farm Group is your local farmland specialist. With decades of experience in Indiana agriculture, no one knows the market better. Whether you're doing a 1031 exchange or simply buying and selling farmland, your local AcrePro agent will walk the land with you and ensure the deal is done right. Visit acrepro.com or call 765-775-6502 and talk to your local land expert today. Again, 765-775-6502.
At Purdue Federal Credit Union, it's about a relationship. A relationship that goes where you go, wherever you are in life. A relationship that's committed to free financial wellness resources, lower fees, and innovative digital banking solutions. Because we believe in people helping people. Let's build your financial future together. Purdue Federal Credit Union, your trusted financial partner for life. Federally insured by NCUA.
Boilermakers and Hawkeyes at 3:30 Eastern Time in Iowa City. This is an Iowa team that is just still, it's the same, right? I mean, people over there are hungry for Brian Ferentz to not be there anymore. I think you mentioned it earlier. It feels like a very 1980s offense here in 2023. And you just cannot do that unless your guys are just better than the other team's guys. You've got to be a little bit more dynamic offensively. And unfortunately for the Hawkeyes, and maybe fortunately for Purdue, Iowa is just not that right now. They do not have enough offensively, especially when you look at some of the injury situations that Iowa has right now as well.
Yeah, they're going to be challenged. You know, Brian Ferentz, the much maligned offensive coordinator, son of Kirk Ferentz, has those clauses in his contract, Kyle, he's got to meet this year as far as, I think, points per game, maybe yards per game, or I guess he loses his job. So, and I was talking to an Iowa writer last night, and he says during that Michigan State game Saturday, there was through television, there's an audible. You can hear the student section audibly yelling, "Fire Brian Ferentz!" So the pressure gets hotter for again Kirk's son, and his job gets a lot tougher, obviously, if McNamara is indeed out, as we suspect. And again, they'll be really challenged. Quarterback that came in, Deacon Hill, I believe, was a kid that was at Wisconsin. He's going to transfer to Fordham, and Iowa reeled him in. And he's the guy. He's a big kid, about 6'3", 250. I'm told has a big arm, but not real mobile. So McNamara has some mobility. And again, the running backs, Caleb Williams, Kyle, the kid who ran for like 200 yards against Purdue last year over here, is out. So again, he's dealing with a less than full deck, Brian Ferentz. So to be interesting to see what he can cobble together here. You know, it's amazing, isn't it, this program, Iowa, Kyle? Even though that offense struggles so mightily, they always find a way with defense and special teams to scratch out wins and score touchdowns. I mean, that's always a fear if you're Purdue. They're going to find some way to win this game 17-14 by scoring on a pick six or a punt return. I give Iowa credit. They've been very resourceful, but at some time you like to think that luck's got to run out. But obviously it's not luck, that they're well schooled and have some talent on both those units, special teams and defense.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Iowa does a great job of keeping itself in games, almost no matter who the opponent is at times, right? I mean, if you can play defense, play special teams, you can keep yourself in there in a lot of instances, and it's able to do that for sure. This feels like a game in which, sort of like the Wisconsin game, Purdue's going to be tested more physically than it was against Illinois. That is the area to me as we look ahead here a few days before the game that you still don't know. The offensive line has been pretty good here recently. Will the defensive line and defensive front be able to do what it did against Illinois and didn't do it against Wisconsin? Will it be able to do that against Iowa? I think those are sort of the big questions as you look forward toward the game on Saturday.
Yeah, along those lines, on the Purdue offensive line, we saw a lot more of Luke Griffin, the transfer from Missouri, at right guard in place of Jalen Grant. I'm sure that probably will continue. And you talk about physicality. Yeah, that line's going to be tested. Can they get a push against Iowa's front? One thing that was pointed out to me about Iowa's defense, which was interesting, they're always bend but don't break. So it's always hard to get big plays. But one thing they still, this year, Kyle, yet to register a sack against a Power 5 opponent, if you can believe that. So they don't seem to have that dynamic pass rusher off the edge. Maybe that's good news for Purdue's line, which has at times struggled to protect Hudson Card. So keep your eye on that. If Iowa can get some pressure, where they've really been unable to do so against Power 5 competition this year. So, as you said, when you play Iowa, Wisconsin, that's Big Ten physical football. Usually not a matchup that favors Purdue. So we'll see how the Boilermakers, really square off in the trenches against Iowa here.
Iowa on the road, Ohio State then at home. The Boilermakers have had moments of good success against the Buckeyes in Ross-Ade Stadium recently, and then at Nebraska. I mean, in some ways, you can look at this month and feel like there's still some opportunity here for Purdue, even though that it's probably overall more challenging than what September was.
Yeah, there's a bye after the Ohio State games. There's only 3 games in October, so they get a break before they have to go to Nebraska. So yeah, you're right. The challenges loom, like you mentioned, and I think they have to find a way to win either Saturday, Kyle, or at Nebraska. They got to find a way to steal one of those road games against vulnerable teams to make up for losing to Fresno State and Syracuse at home. And then again, the last 3 games of the year: Minnesota at home, at Northwestern, Indiana at home. You'd like Purdue's chances in those 3 games. So do the math, right? They need 4 wins here. And again, at Iowa, at Nebraska, games we didn't think Purdue had much of a shot at back in August now suddenly look like games. Well, you know what? Maybe Purdue can find a way to win those games, or maybe at least one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Most definitely. All right. Thanks, Tom.
Take care, buddy.
That'll do it for our podcast for this week. Thanks to our sponsors. As always, if you do like the podcast, please rate us 5 stars on your favorite podcast app. Leave us a comment as well. All right, that'll do it for our show. For Tom Dienhart, I'm Kyle Charters. Thanks for listening. This is Golden Black Radio.